Kavita and Raghu drag their feet along the dusty pathway. The bright morning sun illuminates the apology of a structure, a brick and clay building with half a dozen rooms, a broken compound wall, and a dry parched playground in front with cocoa poles at its two ends. A small lavatory near it is divided into compartments for girls and boys. The floor is covered with cracked, chipped tiles, which not very long ago were a proud cream in color but are now a sorry faded brown. The emaciated cows, goats and occasional pigs that had made the school compound their home over the holidays have been shooed out of their summer kingdom. The school lies on the edge of the village. A few hastily built cow sheds have come up next to the school building, with cattle on one side and cartloads of fodder on the other. Heaps of dung lie strewn along the sheds, attracting flies and other insects. The siblings idle around the school ground for a while. Soon, clusters of children start showing up. Very few bring their books and slates in school bags. Some bring them in worn plastic bags, while others simply carry them in their hands. When Kavita catches sight of Nirmala, she merrily ditches Raghu and skips away with her friend to their usual corner on the extreme right of the hallway, their very own private spot, where they prattle away about all possible things under the sun till the assembly bell rings. Their laughs and giggles have an almost ritualized flavor. The two friends know every little thing about each other, and yet their secrets and whispers continue endlessly. In a bit, Ansh and Rehan show up at the school gate. They seem to be talking about something. Raghu suspects it's Haridas, and rightly so. "Do you know what the best part is?" squeaks Rehan. "My brother, he's thinking of joining Haridas Dhaba." "Just when I thought this couldn't get better," exclaims Raghu. The school bell rings out. The queue for the children to line up height-wise for the morning prayers, a row for each grade. Rehan and Ansh are still busy making plans. When they feel the headmaster's piercing glare on them, they immediately stop chatting and look down at their feet. Sweaty hands clasped tightly behind their backs. Not many students are concerned with studying, in fact. Quite a few attend school just for the heck of it. They make merry and kill time all day, bunk way too often, and hate to sit still in any of their classes. Raghu has always considered these students with tremendous regard, with a desire to follow in their lead someday. However, he is scared to upset his parents, especially his father. He is sure Kavita understands, even if she says his aspirations are worthless. He himself has seen her gapping at him, admiring their guts to do what they do. Gangadhar, the headmaster, is one of the very few in school who care about the betterment of the students, their surroundings, and the future of education in their area. And in the snakes and ladder situation, Hiraman is the longest, most venomous snake. Being Sarpanch, or head of the village, doesn't deter him from paving the way for his own profits. It rather facilitates him. Though his position is that of a teacher like any other, he bosses over his colleagues and in times even over Gangadhar. Teaching is very low on his list of priorities in school. Conveniently, he provides the students with answers scribbled in chits and whispered into their ears to help them pass their exams. This, quite understandably, makes him the students' all-time favorite. He would have been fired ages ago, but nobody has the courage to take on the Sarpanch. It pains Gangadhar to see Hiraman and the other uncultured villagers imprint their petty values on their children. He feels crushed when he sees them throw away their opportunities, their lives, straight out of the window, opting to waste it all in mere folly. It almost feels to Gangadhar that even though there is just enough opening for progress, the villagers don't want to avail it. They don't want to continue living in the supposedly incurable filth that they have created for themselves and not even attempt to rise above it. Not one person in the past decade has taken up a worthwhile, respectable job. The teachers stand in a herd behind Gangadhar as he faces the students. Everybody folds their hands. A teacher begins the prayer and the children follow. The army of harsh-sounding notes wage a war on their ears, attacking in all their deadly unpleasantness. When the prayer is done, everyone looks up at the headmaster for dismissal. Generally, all it takes is a slight nod. But today, Gangadhar steps up and clears his throat. There is a long, awkward pause. Namaste. Namaste, sir, the children sing in a chorus. Gangadhar clears his throat again, coughing a little. As you might know, the dropout rate of students at this school is escalating by the day. It's sad to see the value of education drop in the eyes of this village, he says. I'm sure you are all giving your best, but you must have the will to do better. Everything that you do in this school will take you one step closer to a finer life. I know that to think that any of you will understand, truly comprehend what I am saying is unlikely, but I'm still giving it a shot. Kavita could almost see the thoughts behind the headmaster's head whirring in a nervous mess. You must have all seen lotuses. They grow in muddy swamps and yet, when they bloom, are completely untouched by the dirt. They are spotless, beautiful. Despite the muck, they flower and draw all eyes to them when they do. Everything around you here, the poverty, the illiteracy, the fruitless gossip, all of it is mud. Now it's up to you to decide whether you want to spend your entire life suffocating in the mud or blossom your way out of it. He scans the crowd for any trace of comprehension or enthusiasm, but finds nothing but unfulfillment. He lets out a deep breath he doesn't know he has been holding. Okay then, proceed to your classes. He waves his hand in dismissal. Gangadhar has been posted in the village for the past 6 years and now lives with his wife, Anjani. They have no kids, in a rented house close to a school. Kavita visits Anjani every now and then, and their relationship, bordering almost on friendship, grows deeper with every meeting. Anjani narrates tales from her past to Kavita, who listens with rapt attention. It was the month of May. We used to live in Mahugiri when I was pregnant, she had told her once. Pia's father didn't want the delivery to happen at home, with just the midwife present, so we traveled to Bhimpur. The bus was jam-packed. There were twice as many people standing as those sitting. Add to that the intolerable smell of dust and soot in the air and the heat of the afternoon sun. We didn't have other options available at the time. The potholed roads were such a pain. I remember it was such a bumpy, almost violent ride that Pia's father had to grab my shoulders to stop me from bouncing too hard, and I had to hold on to my tummy for dear life. Your headmaster had a habit of worrying too much. He still does. He straight away took me to the nursing home, where I was examined and admitted. Anjani had slipped into the trance-like mood. She gazed up at the vast, open skies, and Kavita could see the tufts of slow-sailing clouds reflected in her deep brown eyes. Then one day, our grey world was blessed with an angel. Nothing felt the same again. There I was, holding my baby girl, my sweet girl. Her father, she had giggled, bought boxes of sweets and offered one to everyone who happened to cross his way. Doctors, nurses, patients. He said Pia's feet were just like his and her nose just like mine. No matter who came to us, friend or stranger, they were greeted with exorbitant hospitality and warmth, with extra large smiles. Those were the happy days, Kavita. I often see Pia's face in yours. you know. You look a lot like her. Anjani had cupped Kavita's chin lightly in her hand as she had said the words. But the mood had shifted. Darkness had overshadowed her smiling words. Kavita knew the story already, and so did everyone else in the village. What she didn't know, however, was how to handle it. A surge of poignancy had engulfed her, and she had decided to remain silent and listen on. One morning, I woke up around 3. Priya's cheeks were a little warmer than usual. I thought it was just the heat, so I fanned her with my pallu while she slept. But soon, sleep overtook me. I woke up a little late that day, around 8, I think, and Priya was burning up by then. It couldn't possibly have been because of the weather. I rang the bell and called for the nurses and the doctors. I shouted and screamed. They checked her and noted her pulse while I stood in a corner, numb at how careless I had been. She had paused, perhaps reliving the pain of the moment. My baby. She didn't even last a week in there. All those doctors bending over her little body. She had let a tear escape. If only I had been more careful, she would have been with us today, Kavita. She could have been in my arms at this very moment. She could have been here if only I had been a better mother. That thought had been all that was needed to trigger her heart-wrenching wails. You can't blame yourself, Didi. What had to happen, happened. Oh, Priya, I'm so sorry. Kavita had never asked her to stop crying. She had never told her that it was okay, that everything would be fine, because she knew it was not, and that it would never be. Though young and never having lost a loved one, she knew there could never be an easy way out of much sorrow. And so, instead, she had just kept her hand on Anjani's shoulder and let the pressure that had been building inside the broken woman find an escape. She had just held her hand and let the tears flow. The small village, Nimkheri, is nestled in the foothills of Satpura range. The kacha huts, interspersed with very few pakka houses, are connected by a web of unpaved stone lanes. The village has had a history of malicious droughts, but that was a quarter of a century ago. Although to say that Nimkheri is now thriving would be somewhat of an overstatement, it is not doing too poorly either. The village is at its best and most serene during the cool, misty dawns when cattle quietly line the streets like well-parked cars, and the villagers' everyday troubles are cloaked by the morning silence. The family wakes up before daylight. It is drizzling outside and the village is covered in a misty blanket. Shiva's cotton crop is currently tender and needs to be protected from invasive wild grass. To promptly carry out the task at hand, he has decided to involve the children as well. They all set off together on their mission, with just the leftovers from the previous night to fuel them. 3 back-breaking hours later, Kavita and Raghu sprint back home. They are late for school. Both of them take a quick bath and head out in a rush, knowing they are late by around half an hour and have already missed their first class. I don't feel like attending the second one either. Will you bunk with me? Raghu asked Kavita expectantly. You will never learn, will you? I will tell Gangadhar sir, Kavita retorts. Oh, come on. It will be fun. We even have an excuse that nobody will have reason to disbelieve. A perfect alibi. If you want trouble, go ahead, but leave me out of it. Fine. You win, Raghu grumbles. But next time, I will be sure to get my way. Kavita rushes, almost tripping, towards a classroom, only to find her class teacher, Mr. Kumble, in his usual surly mood. He is sitting on a chair, and looks at her from above his spectacles perched precariously at the tip of his nose, in danger of falling right off. In front of him is a table smaller than what would generally be considered normal in a classroom, with a thin attendance register on top. The drawer is open and Kavita can see the mess of pens and papers inside. Kumble is a cantankerous middle-aged man with more hair on his moustache than on his head. He wears almost the same drab clothes every day, a light blue half-sleeved shirt, grey trousers and spoiled brown leather slippers. Chewing betel leaves with superfluous amounts of tobacco is his one true hallmark. What he is especially good at doing is teaching while showing off the amount of spit he can hold in his mouth at any given point. He isn't very strict, though he does have his fair share of tantrums. Kavita, of course, is his favorite student. She gets the privilege of writing the date and the day on the top left corner of the blackboard every day, the milky white chalk turning her fingers ghostly pale. It is she who is sent to fetch whatever he needs from the staff room, sometimes even asked to get him a tumbler of water from the pot in the hallway. This gives her a chance to step out of the class and catch a breath of fresh air, while the rest of the children sit in the jumble of letters and numbers. Her fellow students turn all shades of green at this privilege that is denied to them. Their classroom is quite small, considering it has to accommodate 20 children on thin mats across the floor. A placard saying education is power, a sad attempt at inspiring the insipid children, hangs above the blackboard like it does in every other class, carved into a nicely finished wooden board. In a childlike yet tidy script, this somewhat dusty placard is probably the neatest thing in the room. Kavita stands in the doorway, conscious of all eyes on her. Oh, this is bad. But being the teacher's pet has its perks. She is gently rebuked and sent to sit down. Stalked by disappointed looks, she walks through the maze of bags and fellow students to an empty space on one of the mats at the back. Kumble opens his textbook and orders them all to do the same. Did I finish chapter 2, Nirmala? I think I did. No, sir. We still have a page left. Okay, everyone listen up, he says, clapping his hands. I believe we finished reading about the Ganga-Brahmaputra basin. Let us start with the Indus River. Who would like to read? Since no hands are raised, he picks a student at random and the class begins. However, Kavita's mind is somewhere else altogether. The delicious smell of the school khichdi wafts in and fills her eager nostrils. The midday meal is what really motivates many students to come to school every day. She fantasizes about the soft, delicate rice melting in her mouth, the mellow taste of the dish, the satisfaction of a full tummy. She thinks of the agonizing 120 minutes she still has to endure before she finally gets to taste the delicacy. No, Kavita, if you don't pay attention in class, you know better than anyone what you will be up against in the test. Concentrate. A very gentle slope with a total length of 2,900 kilometers, Indus is one of the longest rivers in the world. A little over one-third of the Indus basin is located in India in the states of Jammu and Kashmir, Himachal Pradesh, and the... Kavita couldn't care less about the Indus basin. It is impossible to focus in class knowing that hot, freshly made khichdi is being stirred at that very moment in a big brass pot just a few meters from her. To make matters worse, thin wisps of smoke from the pantry fire stealthily creep into the class. The aroma of the khichdi gets her stomach rumbling. It almost seems to control Kavita. She even feels slightly ashamed of it. The morning reading had proved a little too much exhaustion, with just the meager serving from the previous night in their bellies. Kavita's stomach is going haywire now, making all sorts of gurgling, wailing noises, Sounds she's scared are loud enough for the others to hear. Time stretches to infinity and beyond, but the bell for recess just doesn't seem to be in the mood to ring. If only I could somehow go back in time, she thinks. I would go back and forth from break to now as many times as I would want, so I could have infinite plates of khichdi. Kavita now can't stop herself from fiddling around. She rocks back and forth, flips through the pages of her textbook, fidgets with her pen and doodles in her notebook. At long last, when the bell finally rings, Kavita quickly sits up on her knees, ready with the steel bowl in her hand, waiting for what seems like another eternity for Kumble to finally shut his book and win things up, before she dashes off to her favorite place in all of the world, the school kitchen.